What's up everybody, it's Wombat. So today I wanted to make a video basically comparing the Boltcaster and the Aconite bows, the two legendaries, to really determine which one's the best. So I'm going to go through my methodology with you and then I'll show you some numbers and we'll determine what the best is. So the first thing was just making sure that I have gear on that doesn't impact either bow. So no abilities, nothing that's going to impact overall damage between one bow and the other. And I did level both these up to 725 because I wanted to give you 725 numbers. So I spent weapon matrices, did everything to make these as similar as I could. Now, one nice thing about the Boltcaster is you can put Keenly Jagged on it. You cannot put Keenly Jagged on the Aconite. So that's one big item which will sort of distinguish between the two bows. And the other one is on the Aconite, the only option you really have is attunement. And attunement is not an option on the Boltcaster. So there are some little things that differentiate the bows just from overall how you're going to count the damage. But this is what I went with for comparison's sake. For stats, well, now my stats are off because I'm recording this after I was done. But I did have my Dex food on and a honing stone. So these are the stats I have in there. This is not the stat build out I play with. It is just what I put down for a reference once I had all this gear on. So not really important for the overall, just kind of showing where things are for the breakdown. So let's go to some numbers and see what things look like. So how did we come up with the numbers? So we'll start with the Boltcaster. What I did was I went to CK and I tested on a Gator and I tested on one of the Azebs. I feel like the Azeb is going to be the more closely representative to a person because they have higher armor, they're an elite. But I went through and I did what is the first shot critical damage. So headshot on the first shot. For the Boltcaster, you get your jagged ticks. There are 10 ticks in jagged. You get bolt, which happens every 3 shots, which comes from the Boltcaster. You have your explosive arrow and your explosive ticks. So 14 ticks per explosive. Poison arrow, poison ticks, 10 ticks per poison. Rain of arrow, rain ticks, 17 ticks per rain. So went through, compiled all these numbers, made sure that none of the abilities were criticals. So all of the abilities and all of the ticks shown are for standard hits, non-criticals. The only criticals are going to be the normal bow shots because I'm going to assume you're really good in your headshotting people. So what it comes down to is the total ability damage for all 3 abilities on both mobs is added up. You can see it on the screen. So you have your ability damage broken out and then 3 shot damage. And why I did 3 shot damage, which is your first shot, second shot, and third shot with Boltcaster, 10 jagged ticks, and bolt. We did 3 shots because the bolt is something you have to account for. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. Now on the Aconite, same exact mobs, and I did a first shot crit and a follow-up crit. And the reason I did a follow-up crit is the Aconite bow does extra damage after the minion is poisoned. So you're going to be hitting harder on that second and third shots. So I went through and I did all of the same things. You have an attunement, which is going to give you 1 tick, and your poison is 14 ticks off of the bow. So the poison functions basically the same way that Jagged does. All of the other abilities, all of the same testing, and you get your ability damage and your 3 shot damage. And again, 3 shot damage to make it comparable with the Boltcaster with its bolt ability, plus getting a normal shot and then your follow-up crit shots that are higher damage on the Aconite bow. So what does this look like together? like I said, I went with the Azebs. They are the most applicable to the mobs that you're going to fight, or like fighting a person, right? So what you'll find is your first shot on the Boltcaster is stronger than even your follow-up crit on the Aconite bow. So initial hits are just stronger with the Boltcaster. Overall, your poison is 14 ticks at 1690, but jagged is 1830. So jagged is better than poison. So again, Boltcaster wins there. And I do want to point out that you have the attunement, but even when you add the attunement to the follow-up crits, you're still less than the Boltcaster. Then you add in the fact that every third shot you get the bolt, and from a straight just shooting someone damage, your 3-shot damage is far higher than on Boltcaster than it is with Aconite. You're talking, 20% higher. Now, when you go to abilities, this does shift a little bit. Your abilities, with all of your ability damage added up, are higher on the Aconite bow because the Aconite, or all your abilities are being boosted by the fact that it is poisoned, and then everything that is poisoned gets 15% additional damage. So your abilities are coming in higher, but your total from 3 shots and all abilities are still higher on the Boltcaster. So overall, the two weapons are somewhat comparable. If you're looking to do straight ability damage, the Aconite bow is going to hit a little bit harder like that, but the overall, if you're just shooting with a bow, which you should be, and you're using your abilities, the Boltcaster is far better. So let's go back and look at some other reasons why you might pick one over the other. This is going to be the important piece, and that's gearing. So when you're looking at these two bows, what can you do to boost your damage output, right? Because if you're playing bow or musket, you're most likely going with a 5-con build because that's how the game works right now. I've been running around 50 cons so I can take a couple of burn ticks from the Burnator before I use my cleanse pots. And I'm just getting back into bow, so I'm going to use my existing or my old pre-expansion gear as the example. But the important thing here is with the Boltcaster, I can put lightning harnessing on every piece of gear, which is a 10% damage increase. I can put lightning damage on my ring, which is a 7.1% increase. It's actually higher when you have a 725. And you can also do your gems, which will do 2% lightning. Not really important because you have you can do sighteds as well. And the sighted, I can show you what those look like. So a sighted gives you 1% damage, but it is 1% of your base damage. So you could use the sighted gems on the Aconite bow, and you'll get 5% extra damage, but you can't do lightning damage. The other thing with the Aconite is you can't gem it to nature. So you can't do, like, even though I've got Arboreal Attunement on there and it does poison damage, you can't gem it to nature. So it doesn't make sense to do something like nature harnessing to get that extra damage. You would only ever do sighted for this bow. So there's a 5% difference there, and then you're just going to have to go with a thrust damage ring versus a lightning damage ring, which, again, there is no real difference on that point. So you are going to get a little bit more damage out of the lightning harnessing with the Boltcaster against the Aconite. And seeing as the Boltcaster was already doing more damage, adding a little bit more damage is just going to make it that much better. So the comparison between the two, for me, it's a no-brainer. You should still be using Boltcaster. The other great thing about Boltcaster is that you can gem against thrust, and gemming against thrust protects you from anybody using Aconite, anybody using a normal bow, half of musket damage, a big chunk of blunderbuss damage. So there's value to having thrust damage. Nobody is gemming against lightning. They just don't do it. So you hit even harder on people when you are using the Boltcaster. Use Boltcaster. It's just better. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.